Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, and in this short conversation, I want to talk to you about what's happening with Brazil. Today, Donald Trump announced that he's going to impose 50% tariffs on Brazil. Not only that, but he has expressed very strong anger towards the Brazilians, and he has threatened them and said basically he's punishing them for having a legal campaign against Bolsonaro. So Donald Trump is kind of worried that all his buddies seem to be having legal issues. His best buddy Netanyahu has visited the U.S. already 3 times since Donald Trump has become president and has been uh, felicitated at the White House 3 times. Each time he came here, and he's wanted by the ICC, and he has legal troubles back home. In fact, Donald Trump has threatened the legal system in Israel with cutting off aid if they do not drop charges immediately, end their so-called accountability of holding Netanyahu accountable. Basically, it's just telling their legal system, just drop it. And now he also basically is threatened Brazil for trying to hold Bolsonaro accountable for his anti-democratic activities. But Donald Trump is also very unhappy with Brazil because Brazil's President Lula, in his speech at the BRICS summit, of which he was president this year, talked explicitly as to how Israel was committing a genocide in Gaza, and he's been a very vocal supporter of Gaza. And Donald Trump has made it his, I guess, mission of his administration to launch a crusade against anybody who advocates for the Palestinians, whether they are students, whether they're professors, faculty, politicians, or members of the International Criminal Court. He has threatened sanctions, legal action against anyone who basically advocates for Palestinian rights or is critical of Israel for what it is doing in Gaza. So I think that is also part of his anger towards Lula. Then he sees Lula as essentially a communist, a leftist, and Bolsonaro as his ideological partner on the right. And then he is also broadly unhappy with BRICS itself because he sees BRICS as threatening the domination of dollar. So dollar domination is under threat from BRICS, and he has, as you all are already aware, he has issued many threats that if any steps are taken to undermine the dominance of the dollar as a world's global reserve currency, then he would impose 100% tariffs. So Donald Trump now has only one policy: tariffs. No matter what, it's tariffs. I guess. Now, one of these days, I think he's going to threaten God with tariffs if he doesn't stop the rains in Texas or something like that. So there is no other alternative way of dealing with the situation other than threatening more and more tariffs. And I'm wondering when will these countries get tired of it. The threat is also a bit more complicated. Like, for example, today he announced a whole bunch of sent off letters in the last 2 days to about 14 countries saying that this is your final number of tariffs. And he's also threatened that if they retaliated, he would then further increase. So you will see the same scenario as you saw with China. So if, like, for example, take the case of Malaysia. So Donald Trump has imposed 25% tariffs on Malaysia. And so now if Malaysia were to respond by saying, okay, so we will do a reciprocal tariffs ourselves, and we will impose 25% tariffs on US products, and then if Malaysia were to do that, then Donald Trump would suddenly impose more tariffs on them. So that is his policy. But with regards to Brazil, if you remember, he also said that he would impose 10% additional tariffs on any country that is seeking to align with BRICS against the United States. He sees BRICS as an anti-US organization. But if you look at the letter and the tariffs that he has sent to Indonesia, which is the latest member of BRICS, it's exactly what was proposed in April. So on April 2nd, he proposed 32% to Indonesia. It's 32% now. So the question is, he has not imposed that additional tariffs for becoming a member of BRICS. So that was empty rhetoric, or maybe he's going to do that later when someone reminds him of that. I hope he doesn't watch this show for the sake of Indonesians. I don't know how that is going to pan out, but we will see how Lula and Brazilians respond. Let me give you, and it's also ironic that he's being so tough on Brazil, because, like I said, he in my other shows that Donald Trump basically has three problems with countries. One, he feels that many countries are imposing tariffs on American goods, and so if he says you charge 10% tariffs on me, I will charge 10% tariffs on you. So that is why that his tariffs are called reciprocal tariffs. So he's responding only to those countries who are imposing tariffs on his, at least in his mind. The second thing that he's really upset with is barriers to American businesses. So countries which have erected non-tariff barriers and do not, or basically disadvantage American firms which are seeking to do business, especially in the service sector in those countries, they have created a lot of barriers, and so he doesn't like that. He feels that is unfair because the United States market is more or less free for a lot of developing nations who set up businesses here, like the Indian IT industry. All the companies also operate in the US far more freely than American companies can in India. So that's one thing that he dislikes. And the third thing that he really, really hates is deficits, especially if it's on the US side. So he thinks that the US having a deficit with another country is proof that the market is rigged and that particular country is cheating the United States. But in the case of Brazil, it's very interesting. The US has the advantage. So the total trade between Brazil and the US is about $92 billion for 2024. And of that $92 billion, US exports to Brazil are about $48 billion. And Brazilian exports to the US are about 41, 42. The total is $90 billion roughly. And the US has basically a trade surplus over Brazil. So in that sense, they don't have that major problem with Brazil that they had with other countries. So the 50% number clearly is a sign of anger and petulance on behalf of the President of the United States. He's basically doing this to protect a buddy, Bolsonaro. I mean, you're hurting Bolsonaro's country too. So, so the logic of this is very, very strange. Unless in Trump's mind, these are all negotiating gimmicks. These are not real tariffs. He really has no intention of actually imposing them. He hopes to get something else. We will see what happens because August 1st is not too far away. And it's quite possible that on August 1st, he might again push the date back further to September, like he did. He said many times that July 9th would be it, and there will be no further delays. But, well, voila, today the White House announced that the tariffs will actually come into force only on August 1st, even though the letters have gone out already. So here's a little graph I prepared for you guys to look at the exports and imports. So the US basically imports crude oil and petroleum of about 10 billion from Brazil, like it imports from, say, Canada. Even though the US is quite self-sufficient in this, it's still importing because I don't know why. And then it also imports iron and steel, which is about 6 billions. The US has already threatened to use Rule 232 to impose 50% tariffs on this. And then it imports coffee, it imports pulp, and it imports aircraft parts. But US exports, which are much more than its imports, are basically heavy machinery. They export machinery, appliances, aircraft parts, and electric machinery and medical equipment. So, I mean, this is what Donald Trump wants, right? He wants manufacturing in the US, and what Brazil is buying is things that have been manufactured in the US. So Brazil should be a precious partner, not just because of the volume of trade that it has and the fact that the US has a trade surplus with Brazil, but also because of this very special thing that Brazil is importing manufactured stuff from the US. And I think that it might be very tempting for Brazil to say, you know what, let's forget the United States. These are things that we can import from China and at a probably at a lower price. And I think that is what is ultimately going to happen. Many of these countries are going to get frustrated with these tariffs, and they are going to look more and more to trade with China. China will be happy to sell them the machinery and appliances, whatever the Americans are making for China. For Brazil, China will be happy to become a substitute for that. And there are also a lot of agricultural imports from Brazil. I'm surprised to see that soya beans are also on the list. I mean, the U.S. was a major exporter of soya beans until the the trade war that Donald Trump triggered with China, and then China shifted its imports of soybeans from the U.S. to Brazil. So soybeans is a growing export crop for Brazil, and primarily, shall we say, triggered and financed by the trade with China. So anyway, so there's this particular tariff decision of 50%, I think, is ideological politics, geopolitics, part of American foreign policy to sustain America's preeminence in world, to undermine BRICS, etc. So I think there's more to the tariff rate with regards to Brazil than it is, say, in other countries. But let me also remind you that maybe the Trump administration doesn't know that Indonesia is a new member of BRICS, because there has been no additional tariffs imposed on Indonesia for becoming a member of BRICS. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to share, give you an update on what's happening with Brazil, especially for those of you who are watching from countries who are members of BRIC nations. There is a very serious geopolitical question here for those countries, for India, for Russia, China, South Africa, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Iran. Are they all going to stand together to face the United States, or they will just try to make independent deals with the US? As of now, there has been no attempt by any bloc, ASEAN or African Union or even BRICS, to negotiate with the US as a group. And that to me is quite surprising. It shows the fundamental structural weaknesses of these groups, like BRICS and SCO, etc. BRICS is about finance and trade and economic development. So they could have had a sit down with the Donald Trump's administration. I'm sure Trump only likes to engage bilaterally, and he would say no to BRICS. But if they had refused to meet with him individually, so there is a very interesting game theory game called Stag Hunt, which kind of applies to this situation very well. I just thought of it, and so maybe this fall I will use Stag Hunt to explain why the rest of the world, did not respond to Donald Trump's tariff collectively. European Union is doing that, and we will see. But European Union exists as a very cohesive unit already. So anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. I am your host, Muqtedar Khan. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. And I will continue to be giving you updates and analysis of this tariff saga as we go forward. So thank you for watching. Bye.